The crucifixion of Jesus Christ was one of the most brutal executions ever recorded. But before you hear what happened, I want you to imagine something. Imagine someone you love being beaten, humiliated, and slowly executed in front of a crowd. Now imagine that person did nothing wrong, because 2,000 years ago, outside the walls of Jerusalem, this actually happened, and the man who endured it was completely innocent. His name was Jesus Christ. What happened to him that day was so violent, so horrifying, that many historians say most people today could barely watch it. Roman soldiers whipped him until his flesh tore open. A crown of thorns was forced into his scalp, and iron nails were driven through his wrists and feet, while crowds watched him struggle for every breath. But here is the part almost no one realizes. He could have stopped it at any moment. According to the Gospel of John, he chose the cross, which raises one haunting question. Why? Stay with me for the next few minutes, because once you understand what truly happened during the final hours of Jesus' life, you may never see the cross the same way again. Before we continue, if stories like this matter to you, stories that reveal the truth behind the life and sacrifice of Jesus Christ, take a moment to subscribe to this channel, because here we explore the most powerful moments in biblical history, not as distant legends, but as real events that changed the world. And if this message moves you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Now, let's go back to that moment, 2,000 years ago, outside the walls of Jerusalem, where the greatest act of love in human history unfolded. Our journey begins not with nails, not with crosses, not even with betrayal, but with a choice. A choice made by Jesus of Nazareth, a choice to lift a cup filled with the sin and sorrow of humanity, so that humanity could be lifted from its own despair. Jerusalem was swollen with nearly 1 million visitors for Passover. Roman troops patrolled every corner, watching, waiting. The air itself felt tense, as if history was holding its breath. And in the center of this storm stood a man who healed the sick, raised the dead, fed the hungry, and confronted the pride of kings, priests, and empires. The Romans were experts in execution. The religious leaders were experts in law. Together, willingly or blindly, they were preparing the stage for the most unjust trial the world had ever witnessed. But long before the nails, long before the beatings, something else crushed him first. The weight of the world, your mistakes, my failures, every sorrow, every wound, every sin began pressing upon him. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him. Isaiah 53, 4-5. And so he walks toward a garden, Gethsemane, a place whose very name means the oil press. How fitting, because tonight the Son of God will be pressed until his soul feels like it is pouring out. Stay close now. Do not look away, because what is about to unfold will break your heart and yet heal your soul. Gethsemane, a garden on the slopes of the Mount of Olives, a place Jesus visited often, a place of prayer, a place of quiet, soon to become a place of unthinkable anguish. Tonight, the Creator steps into the very ground where humanity once fell, to reverse the curse through obedience. He brings his closest friends, yet even they cannot comprehend the storm rising inside him. He tells them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow, to the point of death. There are wounds of the body, And then there are wounds of the soul, deeper than any whip could carve. In the stillness of night, the Son of God kneels, and then he falls. For the burden pressing upon him is no ordinary weight. He feels every sin, every betrayal, every act of cruelty ever committed. The guilt of the world gathers like a storm above his head and pours into his soul. Medical experts call it hematidrosis, a rare condition triggered only by extreme emotional agony. Tonight, salvation itself bleeds. 3 times he prays. 3 times he asks if the cup of divine judgment might pass. He does not fear pain. He does not fear death. He fears the cup, the separation from God the Father, the weight of sin, the wrath meant for us. And while he agonizes, they sleep. The world he came to save slumbers, while salvation bleeds alone. Loneliness is one of the deepest human pains. Tonight, even loneliness bows before his sorrow. But then, something changes. The trembling stops. The tears cease. He stands, willing, ready, resolved. And the Lamb of God walks toward the wolves, not as a victim, but as a sacrifice. The silence of the night is broken. The shadows move. The hour of darkness has arrived. They come with weapons, swords, clubs, chains. Yet the one they seek has never lifted a hand in violence. And at the front walks a friend, a disciple, a man who once sat at the feet of Jesus and now leads his enemies to him. The one I kiss is the man. Matthew 26:48. In ancient Israel, a kiss was a sign of respect, honor, affection. Tonight, it becomes a weapon. Greetings, Rabbi. Friend, do what you came for. Matthew 26:49-50. He meets betrayal with the calm of love, and suddenly the grove erupts with chaos. What was still becomes storm. What was quiet becomes uproar. Then they laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Matthew 26:50. The disciples watch, stunned. Their hope, their teacher, their Messiah, now in the hands of his accusers. In panic and fear, Peter acts on impulse, the response of a heart overwhelmed. Put your sword back in its place, for those who live by the sword shall perish by the sword. Matthew 26:52. In the midst of betrayal, he heals. In the face of violence, he chooses peace. He is not defeated. He is not overpowered. This is surrender, but not to his enemies. Do you not know that I could call down 12 legions of angels? Matthew 26:53. One word from him could summon the armies of heaven. Yet he chooses the path of sacrifice. And as their shepherd is seized, the sheep scatter. Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. Matthew 26:56. Bound as a criminal, though innocent as a lamb, Jesus is led toward the city. What awaits him next is the most unjust trial ever recorded. A night of false witnesses, twisted law, and corrupted judgment. But he walks into it willingly, because love demanded nothing less. The law was clear. No trials at night. No verdict without witnesses. No innocent man condemned by contradiction. Yet tonight, every law meant to protect justice will be bent, twisted, and broken. Jesus is brought first to Annas, a former high priest, a political architect behind the scenes, a man with no legal authority to try anyone. Why do you question me? Ask those who heard me. John 18:21. The first blow of the night, not from justice, but from hatred. Caiaphas, the acting high priest, the man who already decided Jesus must die, long before this trial began. But lies cannot stand united. False witnesses crumble under the weight of truth. Many gave false testimony, but their statements did not agree. Mark 14:56. Frustration spreads like smoke through the chamber. They cannot find a single consistent accusation. And then, the high priest asks the one question that will turn the night toward the cross. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God. Matthew 26:63. I am. Mark 14:62. Two words echoing the divine name spoken to Moses. Not blasphemy, but truth. This gesture, forbidden by law, was meant to show righteous outrage, but instead exposed their rage. You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? Mark 14:64. They condemn the author of life for speaking the truth of his identity. What was illegal becomes cruel. What was unjust becomes mockery. They spat in his face and struck him. Matthew 26:67. Prophesy. Who hit you? Mark 14:65. The one who shaped the stars is mocked by those he created. While Jesus stands inside on trial, a different struggle unfolds outside. I do not know the man. Matthew 26:74. The disciple who promised to die with him cannot even admit knowing him. And before sunrise, the verdict is sealed. They bound him and led him away to Pilate. Mark 15:1. The religious leaders have spoken, but only Rome can execute. What awaits him now has broken even the strongest of men. Prepare your heart for the scourging. They stripped him, not only of his clothes, but of his dignity. In the governor's headquarters, a place meant for justice, Mockery became the entertainment of the night. The soldiers had one goal: to break him, not just physically, but psychologically. They crafted a crown, not of gold, but of thorns. Each thorn, 2 to 3 inches long, designed to pierce deep, to inflame nerves, to send shocks of agony through the skull. And twisting together a crown of thorns, they placed it on his head and knelt before him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews. Matthew 27:29. They draped him in a royal robe, not to honor him, but to humiliate him. They knelt, pretending loyalty, bowing with exaggerated gestures, mocking the very one who breathed life into their lungs. And then they pressed it down. Thorns punctured scalp. Pain radiated like lightning across his nerves. Blood flowed down his face. But he didn't resist, not once. They spat on him, struck him, tore out handfuls of his beard. Every act meant to degrade, he absorbed with holy restraint. The crown of thorns was not just an instrument of torture. It was a symbol of the curse placed on humanity since Eden, now placed upon his head. He bore the thorns, so we would never have to bear the curse. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth, like a lamb led to the slaughter. Isaiah 53:7. And so, wearing a crown meant for mockery, he stands. His next steps will lead him to a hill called Golgotha. But this moment of humiliation reveals a truth far greater than any kingly coronation, that the greatest power the world has ever known would be displayed through surrender. The crown of thorns presses into his brow. The robe, tattered and stained with blood, clings to his shoulders, and now the journey begins. The weight of the cross is unimaginable. 6 feet of rough-hewn wood, bearing the weight of sin, shame, and all the cruelty humanity can muster. The cross digs into his raw shoulders. Every step is agony, every breath a battle. The crowd mocks him. Save yourself. Come down from the cross. Yet he does not, because he must go forward. And he went out, bearing his own cross. John 19:17. He falls, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Each fall a reminder. The suffering of the world presses down on him. Every sin, every betrayal, every act of hatred, he carries it all. Rome compels Simon of Cyrene to share the burden, a glimpse of mercy amidst relentless cruelty. Even then, the true burden remains upon the shoulders of the Son of God. The women of Jerusalem weep, but he speaks to them, words of hope through unbearable suffering. Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. Luke 23:28. Every step brings him closer, closer to the hill called Golgotha, the place of the skull, the place of redemption. 3 hours of walking, under the weight of wood and sin, and he reaches the hill. The hill where humanity's hope and God's wrath meet, where mercy and justice collide. The road to Golgotha is more than a path of wood. It is the road of love, sacrificial and absolute. And now, the Son of God is ready for the cross. Golgotha, a hill of execution, a stage where divine love confronts human cruelty. No Roman soldier forces him onto the cross. Jesus lays himself down freely. I lay down my life. No one takes it from me. John 10:18. The hands that healed the blind and lifted the broken are now placed upon rough wood. The Roman nails were not small. They were meant to hold a man's weight, to break not just the body, but the will. The hammer falls. Metal drives through flesh and into wood. The shock of pain surges through his arms, not sharp for a moment, but deep, relentless, spreading like fire. He feels the tearing pressure, the burning ache, the weight pulling against his own body. Yet he speaks no curse, no hatred. "Father, forgive them." Luke 23:34. Then the soldiers move to his feet, a single nail driven through bone and nerve to affix him to the wooden beam. Agony shoots upward through his legs into his spine. Every instinct cries out to pull away, yet he remains still giving, still offering himself for the world. When the cross is raised, his whole body hangs upon the nails. Every breath becomes a war between lifting himself against the pain and falling into suffocation. The Roman soldiers knew the tendon in the wrists would tear and break, forcing Jesus to use his scorched back muscles to support himself, to breathe. Imagine the struggle, the pain, the courage. Jesus endured this reality for 3 hours. They crucified him between two criminals. Mark 15:27. He suffers openly, and yet they mock him. He saved others. Let him save himself. Luke 23:35. One criminal joins the mockery. The other sees innocence and hope. "Lord, remember me." Luke 23:42. In unbearable anguish, Jesus still offers salvation. "Today, you will be with me in paradise." A sword of pain pierces Mary's soul as she watches the nails hold her son's body upright. At midday, darkness blankets the land. Creation itself groans. The nails tear at his hands with every breath. His feet press against the spike for each upward gasp. Muscles tremble, bones strain, yet his spirit does not break. My God, why have you forsaken me?" Mark 15:34. The sacrifice nears its completion. The Savior's breath slows. Every word, every heartbeat, paid for with indescribable pain. Golgotha is still. The voices that mocked him have fallen silent. The soldiers have grown tired. The crowds have gone home. And there, upon that center cross, hangs the one who loved more deeply than the world ever deserved. He has endured the hammer. He has endured the nails driven through his hands and his feet. He has endured the weight of humanity's sin pressing on a body already pushed beyond human limits. And now, his breathing has stopped. His suffering has ceased. His mission in this moment is complete. But the world does not yet understand that the stillness of his body is not the end of the story. And bowing his head, he gave up his spirit. John 19:30. Roman law demanded certainty. No prisoner could be removed from a cross until death was undeniable. The soldiers break the legs of the criminals, a brutal method to hasten death. But when they come to Jesus, they find that he is already gone. Not one of his bones shall be broken. John 19:36. To be certain, a soldier performs one final act, and with a single thrust, prophecy is fulfilled. One of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water flowed out. John 19:34. Doctors explain this as the rupture of the heart, a sign that Jesus truly died of overwhelming physical and emotional agony. The blood and water tell the story. He did not die from the nails. He did not die from exhaustion. He died from a broken heart, a heart crushed under the weight of the world's sin. Surely this man was the Son of God. Matthew 27:54. A hardened soldier, one who had seen countless men die, looks upon the lifeless body of Jesus and sees divinity. The sky remains dark, the wind slows, a sacred hush covers Golgotha. Heaven has witnessed the sacrifice. The earth has felt the weight of his death. But this is not the end. The Lamb has been slain. Now, he will be laid to rest. The light of the world has gone out, and creation feels the absence. While many fled in fear, one man stepped forward in love. Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy and respected leader, asks for the body of Jesus. Joseph went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Mark 15:43. The Son of God, who once walked on water, is now carried by human hands. They wrap him with spices, as is the custom of their people, a final act of devotion for the one who showed them eternal love. They took the body of Jesus and bound it in linen with spices. John 19:40. A tomb never used, reserved for a king. With a final push, the stone is rolled in place, and the world enters a silence it has never known. They rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb and departed. Matthew 27:60. To his followers, hope seems buried. The teacher is gone. The miracles are memories. The promises feel broken. Rome seals the grave with authority. Guards stand watch day and night. To them, this is just another assignment. Make the tomb as secure as you can. Matthew 27:65. The world waits. Heaven waits. Hell celebrates. But beneath the silence, a victory is forming. Inside this silent tomb lies the still body of the one who created life. But death does not realize it has only borrowed him. The silence is almost over. Death is about to lose its greatest battle. Before dawn breaks, something stirs. The night that followed his death was the heaviest the world had ever known. A silence thick with sorrow, a darkness suffocating with defeat. But grief does not have the final word. Death doesn't own the last chapter, because inside that tomb, where the lifeless body of Jesus Christ was laid, something impossible is happening. The heart that had stopped beats again. The lungs that were still fill with breath. The eyes once closed in death open with resurrection life. And with that single breath, hope returns to the world. The earth trembles, the stone shifts. Heaven moves what humanity could never lift. And the Son of God steps out of the darkness, alive forevermore. In a moment, shame is broken, sin is forgiven, the curse is shattered, death is defeated. And all of this was done for you. The scars on his hands are no longer signs of death, but invitations to life. He rose so your hope could rise. He lives so your soul could live. He conquered death so you would never have to fear it again. This is the hope of redemption. This is the victory of Christ. This is the beginning of new life for all who believe.
This documentary was brought to you by Kingdom Worship.
If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it right now.
Every share helps us keep telling the stories that matter most. Subscribe to support our work.
The story of Christ deserves to be heard by everyone. Help us make that happen.